Hi guys, I want to read you another story tonight. I don't know if you have ever heard of the Good Old Days magazines. Well, I got one um, that was given to me, and it's from March 1986. See the pretty cover on the front, and it's really from 1986 because the pages are old and yellow when you open it up. I was 6 years old when this magazine was printed, came out. But the first story that I found, I just now started looking at it, that I wanted to read to you guys from is My Great-Grandparent'S General Store by Belle Smith. And here's a picture of the some of the stuff inside the old store, so you can see what the old store looked like. That's some of the merchandise inside the old store. So we'll get started with the story. See how much things have changed from 1986 until to 2014 here. Things have come a long way since the days when mom and pop stores were the primary place to purchase groceries, and they've come even further since the time when the neighborhood general store was a social hall as well as a supply outlet. My maternal great-grandparents operated one of these latter establishments, and it produced a lot of happy memories. The store was located in what the century before was the elite section of our upstate New York community, but in the early 1900s, it had long since deteriorated into a factory district, although it remained for a time well populated by those of Italian origin, which my great-grandparents were. The proximity to the local manufacturing plants no doubt helped to keep their business flourishing long after similar operations yielded to the larger markets cropping up through the community. Also, the store was 2 doors away from the direct route to the centrally located senior high school that served our community of 30,000 plus. The elementary school was, by those standards, only a stone's throw, and the store was across the street from the ice company, which made it easy for great-grandpa and grandma to keep plenty of ice, cold cola drink in the big old-fashioned ice box. Sounds so good, don't it? There also was always an ample supply of candy bars and cookies to appease the hunger of students and factory workers at the end of a hard day. The store wasn't much to look at. There was a little, if any, semblance of order in the way the shelves were stocked with various goods. Today's supermarket stock supervisor would have nightmares if he or she would be shuttled back in time for a visit to this little emporium. Super Suds sat next to bathroom tissue, which in turn sat next to tobacco cans and cigar boxes. On another shelf, more Super Suds could be found next to the boxes of Quaker oatmeal. Just below those items would be boxes of butter wafer, resting above several squash reposing on top of a case of canned soup. Often as not, the boxes were upside down. Rolls of shelf paper were neighbors on the other side of the oatmeal, while below them in the glass-enclosed case would rest fresh loaves of Italian bread delivered daily by a local baker. Sharing the same case with the bread, although on another shelf, would be some stationery items that didn't fit in the stationery cabinet because it was too full of sewing notions, and men's socks and ladies' cotton stockings with seams. There were many other assorted items, and pastas of the era were sold in bulk. History does repeat itself, as were the National Biscuit Company, no abbreviations then, goodies that were kept in labeled tins. Some of the most of the canned goods and cereal then available were crowded in a hodgepodge where they fit. 25-pound bags of Pillsbury's Best were usually stacked on top of the icebox, and many of my childhood play dresses were sewn from those printed flour sacks. At Christmas time, salted codfish soaked in big metal basins for several days before being sold for Christmas Eve right out of the basins. A few chairs were scattered about this one-room operation, but more could be brought out for the living quarters in the back if the number of neighborhood guests warranted it. Great-Grandpa sat in a wooden swivel chair and smoked his pipe while his cronies gathered around in straight-back chairs with their chosen smoking materials, reminiscing about the old country. In those days, it was perfectly all right to bring out the homemade wine, except during the Prohibition, and always the ice-cold cola drinks waited for thirsty youngsters who would come after their assorted grandfathers. I doubt there was much money to be made with this enterprise, even by yesteryear's standards. It seems much was given away rather than sold, but 5 apartments in the building that housed the store helped these generous people eke out a living, even though they kept the rents low for relatives and friends. But somehow they managed. Although 5 to 12 children died as infants or toddlers, they raised 7 others to adolescent or adulthood, and the survivor of them all recently reached 90 years. As a young child, I spent much time in that store. Both my brother and I knew it was open season on the icebox with its ice-cold cola, and we weren't denied other treats in that treasure house of delectables. If we were really hungry, or if it was lunchtime, we would delight in sandwiches made with slabs of old-fashioned loaf, slathered with ketchup, and surrounded by thick slices of Great-Grandma's homemade bread. Mixed with sundry store smells, Great-Grandpa's pipe and the seasonal codfish odors would be the primordial pot of spaghetti sauce simmering on the back of the stove, and in chilly weather, homemade soup. Many were the times we would join in with the aunts, uncles, cousins, and neighbors that lived in the building, as well as grandparents and parents, to share in the pot of sauce or soup and all that went with it. If a customer came into the store while we were eating, an old-fashioned bell would alert whoever was clerking, and just as often as not, the customer would be waited and invited to the table. I was 6 years old when Great-Grandma died, and 13 when Great-Grandpa's time came. I don't recall her funeral at all, but the thing I remember most about his was all the people. It was incredible, the friends those dear folk had, and so many of them came to say goodbye. The old building, along with most of its neighbors, is gone now, torn down to pave the way for progress. Nearby is a large supermarket with a bakery department. That alone covers twice the square footage of the old store. And there's a large chain drugstore and a huge discount department store. Some of the old buildings we had built right over the river that flows through the central part of the city, and their demise made way for a lovely park, so that area is prettier now, except for the few old factories and bars that remain. The elementary school is gone, but the ice company remains, manufacturing ice cubes for machines. High school students and factory workers can obtain all the candy bars they desire at the supermarket checkout, and cold canned cola in abundance in the machines. The first grader who would run merrily into the store calling for her great-grandma, receiving a hug that would squeeze her tightly against an ample bosom before being handed the coveted candy bar, is Grandma herself now. And although she enjoys the convenience of today's modern stores and the products available, There is something missing that can never be obtained in any of today's outlets, staffed by cherry checkout clerks, and that's all the love and warmth that was available in Great-Grandpa and Grandma's general store. We was blessed enough to have 2 stores like that in the little country town that I grew up in as a child, and I remember going to those stores so many times, especially the one, and it's like neither one of them are there anymore. The building's still there, but the stores have long since been closed. But nothing beats the old stores, the old general stores, you know, the old mom and pop stores. Nothing beats those. And you go there on trick or treat, and you'd get they'd give you a whole can of pop, or a bottle of pop, and a whole candy bar. It was awesome. But I hope you guys enjoyed that story, my Great-Grandparent's General Store by Belle Smith. And I hope you guys have a great weekend. Bye, guys. God bless.